Randall Jarrell's poem "The Death of the Ball Turret Gunner" was published in 1945. The poem establishes a stark, grim tone. At the same time, the title creates an expectation which goes unfulfilled. Traditionally, a title that announces the death of a certain person accompanies a long, intricate poem containing in-depth characterization. This poem is short and straightforward, with a subject who remains mostly anonymous. The title does tell the reader that the subject of the poem has a specific role in the military. The phrase "my mother's sleep" is the first indication of the womb metaphor that persists throughout the poem. The word "fell" hints at the speaker's power to control his circumstances, thus leaving him vulnerable to the state. And that word, with its initial letter capitalized, suggests a powerful and impersonal institution which considers its citizens to be expendable means toward achieving larger goals. "I hunched it its belly" continues the womb metaphor and also indicates why it is used in the poem. The position of a ball turret gunner on the underside of a World War II bomber strongly parallels the position of a child in the womb. So Jarrell's association is clear. But where a mother's womb is warm and protective, this womb of the state is bitterly cold, as suggested by the line's closing words, "My wet fur froze." This phrase also hints at the great fear the speaker must have experienced. If the fur of the jacket freezes, then the speaker must have been sweating, and for the speaker to sweat in such cold conditions, he must have been very fearful. The fact that the speaker is 6 miles from Earth is another hint that the speaker's circumstances are precarious and unnatural. The phrase "dream of life" can be regarded in two ways. If we think of a dream as something unreal, then the speaker's life becomes a dream opposed to the reality of fighting and dying. But if we think of a dream as something hoped for, then we understand that the speaker desires yet will not attain. Either way, the speaker is again seen to be powerless and hopeless. In line 4, the paradox that the speaker woke to a kind of a metaphor blurs the distinction between what is real and what is not. Also, the words "black flag" echo "ack-ack", which was a slang term for anti-aircraft fire during World War II. There are several ways in which line 5 seems to comment upon both the brutal nature of war and the inhuman conduct of the state. First of all, the line makes no mention of specific circumstances of the speaker's death, even though, because of the poem's title, we expect to learn how the speaker is killed. In this way, the speaker comes to us as one of a numberless dead. There is nothing distinctive about this death, which contradicts the traditional idea that to die in battle is both honorable and glorious. Also, that the speaker is given no ceremonies or commendations, but is callously washed out of turret with a hose, again implicates the state as a ruthless, impersonal user of human life. And since the dead body is not simply removed from the turret, but needs to be washed out, the line suggests that the speaker's body has been most horribly mangled by battle, yet another indicator of the hideous nature of war. Death is an undeniable element in any poem about war. It provides the core energy of the situation, the mystery and hint of primal fear that commands the reader's attention. Traditionally, war poems contrast death with a sense of honor and glory that soldiers are taught they can win in battle. In poems that celebrate heroism, the unknowable aspect of death is in harmony with the soldier's personal achievement. That is, his struggle towards self fulfillment as a warrior is completed by the soldier's death. The opposite strain of war poetry is made up of those that see death as a way of various noble ideals disintegrating into nonsense. In this poem, Jarrell seems to lean toward this view of death as the waste of consciousness when the speaker is washed out of the turret with a hose. But in fact, this poem takes a more complex view of death. In this poem, it is life that is shown as vacant, unthinking, and unfeeling, and life is only liberated at the moment of death, when ironically it is too late for awareness. This marked change can be observed in the poem's fourth line with the words, I woke. Prior to this, the speaker had only spoken of being asleep, first in the sheltered life of childhood, and then in the unthinking dependence one assumes in the military, which, like sleep, is fallen into. It is only in battle, when faced with death, that the speaker awakens. Jarrell only implies that soldiers reach the state of awakeness when faced with death, not that death itself is an awakening, but the two are too close to stay apart for long. Even if the soldier could wake up to the world but not die, he would have to place himself in danger so often that death would be unavoidable, either to meet obligations or to that state of awakeness. The speaker of the poem is clearly emphasizing mankind's physical nature over more metaphysical aspects. The reference to his mother in the first line draws attention to the chain of reproduction that leads to a person's existence. This idea of reproduction is built in the second line, where the phrase in the belly strongly suggests an animal in the womb. Jarrell later said that this visual resemblance was the image with which he started this poem. The mention of fur, especially wet fur, completes a connection of people in machines to preborn infants, since the wetness brings to mind the fluid the fetus floats in and less directly a physical sensation that can be touched. The speaker of this poem does not speak of a specific relationship such as above or below, which we commonly use as metaphors to imply that the things are of higher or of lower value. Instead, the narrator of this poem places his location as 6 miles from the earth. The verb that follows this, loosed, completes the thought of detachment or dissociation from the physical world. Instead of simply distinguishing the free-floating, non-physical thoughts, the poem presents both of them as products of the human mind. The world of the flesh is a dream of life, but the realm that is beyond this is the domain of nightmares. All that is left by the end of the poem is destroyed flesh, so insignificant, has been separated from its spirit that, like common dirt, it is washed away with a hose. Jarrell presents the speaker of this poem as someone who has never had any control over his life, nor any interest in controlling it. The first line describes the only major movement in his life as being the influence of his mother. The primal influence, the one relationship that every animal is born with, to the influence of the vast impersonal social body, characterized as the state. The mother's control is not remembered fondly as being pleasant or morally superior, but is called for sleep, implying that she had little awareness of life herself. Nothing about the state is shown to be very inspiring either. The speaker does not make any aim or a goal of joining this organization, but describes how he fell into it. Throughout both phases of his life, infant who is not in control. In trying to get a sense of the character of this poem's speaker, the reader must ask whether he is pathologically passive, aligning himself with anyone who cares to give orders without exercising enough personal judgment to protect his own life. The fact that he displays no individual personality and no wants or needs seems to indicate this. On the other hand, by ending the poem with the gruesome image that he uses, Jarrell offers a punishment that is far in excess of what one might deserve for such non-involvement. With their sympathies thus aroused, readers are more see the speaker as too immature and naive to form opinions independent of his mother or the government.